Hey, welcome to my video. If you're from my Instagram, I love you, and if you're not from my Instagram, love you all the same. Welcome to a new series on my channel that I'm naming Monthly Book Club. So it's pretty self-explanatory. By the end of every month, I'm going to be telling you exactly what I read, and I'm going to be sharing my opinions and ratings on those books. Now, a couple of disclaimers before we begin. Number one, I'm really never here to bash the books or much less the authors. I really respect authors in general. I think they create a beautiful form of art that makes us feel things a lot of the times. And so with that being said, why would I ever bash them? I mean, number one, who even am I to bash them, you know? But number two, why would I even want to? I would never actually want to do that. So I'm not going to. I am going to be letting you know my honest opinion. So if something doesn't work for me, I am going to tell you. But I just feel that there's a very respectful and normal way to say that without dragging the book to hell and back, or the author as well. Another thing is, if you're the type of person who bases their decision on whether or not you want to purchase and then read a book based off of reviews, which, side note, I am personally not. But if you are that type of person, that's great, but I would recommend that you listen to more than just one review. Listen to multiple bad and multiple good reviews. Because honestly, a lot of this really is subjective. I mean, I could tell you a very specific reason as to why I enjoyed a particular book, and then you could go to your friend and they could use that same reason to tell you why they actually hated that book. And both opinions are valid. Of course, nobody's wrong. So if you are the type of person who wants to listen to reviews before they purchase a book, of course do so, but just like listen to multiple, whether they're mine or not, it doesn't matter, but just listen to multiple reviews and then decide where you personally land. Because honestly, I never would want to discourage anybody from reading a book. Like if I mention a book here that you wanted to read, I don't want to discourage you from doing that. Actually, I would like for you to read it and maybe you'll still like it. And also, if that happens, I do encourage a healthy discussion in talking about why you liked it and I didn't, or vice versa. Again, as long as we're really not here to bash the authors or the books. And also, let's all just remember, reading is supposed to be fun. Some of us really don't read for educational purposes anymore. I just read for fun now. And if you do too, I think that's great. And I think we're gonna be great friends. So we should all just remember that this is all in good fun. And if any of this sounds appealing to you, then please keep watching. So the first book that I read at the top of the month is called Twisted Pride. So Twisted Pride is a mafia, enemies to lovers type romance where the main male character kidnaps the main female character on the day of her wedding day as an act of revenge and keeps her in his mansion. So I think you know where this is going. Obviously, they both feel attracted to each other and eventually they of course also succumb to that attraction, and that's what the story essentially is. And for me, I actually really like this book. Once the kidnapping happens though, it is a little slower paced from that moment on up until about, I don't know, like 35%, but then it does pick up, and I think it does have more substance than like maybe a typical mafia romance, because it's not only focused on the main male and female characters, but also around their families, and not just like quickly in passing. So there was some story there. I also really liked the main female character because she definitely doesn't back down and she has a backbone. And I love reading about female characters that are like that. So this was very enjoyable for me. And there are definitely some twists and turns here that I didn't foresee. One of which is sort of a polarizing twist, let's say. If you're in the bookish community, you know that this trope certain people are obsessed with and others like literally cannot stand. So if you know, you know. I'm not gonna say what it is because I don't want to spoil it. I personally love that trope, so I really enjoyed that. I do wish there was just like a touch more of like touch her and you die vibes from the main male character, but I always think there could be more of that. Okay, so now it's time for the rating. My personal rating system goes a little bit like this. If I didn't finish the book, that's a 1 star. If it's sort of below average, or if I had to take a lot of breaks in between because I was sort of bored, it's 2 stars. If it's a pretty good book, it's 3 stars. That's sort of my average that I give almost to every book. And then if it's something more than that, that's 4 stars, and 5 stars is sort of that book that you literally cannot wait to finish, but at the same time, you really don't want to finish it because when you finish it, it's over. So really quickly, that's sort of my rating system. Now, when it comes to spice, 1 chili pepper is just kissing or suggestion of other things. 2 chili peppers Peppers is multiple smutty scenes, but just nothing too extreme. 3 Chili Peppers is if they're doing something out of the ordinary, you know, something that we don't necessarily read about or see every day. And then 4 and 5, I don't even know, because I don't think I've actually read a 4 and 5. Maybe Haunting Adeline would definitely be around a 4 and 5, but otherwise I don't really give those out that much. Okay, so now that you know the system, I would personally rate this a 3-star and 2 chili peppers. Now, I really don't give out halfsies, so that's why it's 2. So the second book that I read is called Trapped with Mr. Walker. Now, this is a fake dating romance, and it's about Reed, a former playboy from New York who is running for office and enlists the help of Harley to be his sort of live-in girlfriend and help him clean up his image a little bit. And obviously, of course, you know where this is going. Eventually, forced proximity does its thing and they sort of fall for each other. So I really like the main couple in this book, especially the main male character. He's a golden retriever type of playboy who is obsessed with the main female character. I will say there is a 3rd act breakup in there that's sort of just drawn out for what it is and how simple it would actually be to resolve in real life. But to be fair, I always get frustrated when a 3rd act breakup happens, but I mean, I think we like that type of frustration, no? But yeah, overall, this was a very enjoyable book, and the spicy scenes were pretty spicy, and there was a good amount of, how shall we say, spicy talking during the scenes. You get it. So for me, this book also gets 3 stars, and this one gets 3 chili peppers. So this is gonna be a little controversial yet brave. If you love this book, if this is a 5-star in your eyes, then I love that for you. But for me, it really wasn't giving that. I am talking about Wildfire by Hannah Grace. So this would sort of be a college sports romance. And it's about Russ and Aurora who hook up at a house party and then she leaves without saying goodbye. The next day, they both leave for the same camp as they both have jobs as camp counselors at this camp. And so naturally, because of the forced proximity, they do have to figure things out. So I do have to say that I probably didn't like this book that much because I was probably subconsciously comparing it to the first book in this series, which is Icebreaker, which I personally loved. I like ate it up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's why I was probably expecting God knows what. I don't even know what. And that's probably why it fell flat a little bit in my eyes. I really liked Russ. He's not only a golden retriever, like what's one level above a golden retriever MMC? A kitten? I don't know. I really liked him. I like that him and Aurora had a sort of shared a trauma that they used to bond over and that was talked about in the book. It definitely gave it more substance. I also liked that in the beginning of the book, there was definitely a lot of words of affirmation, something akin to a praise kink, but not really getting there. And I liked Xander as the side character. I would read a book about him as well. Overall, I would say maybe the last 30% of the book, I wasn't feeling many emotions at all. Not bad, not good, sort of not much really. I'm really not sure why it didn't gel, but this definitely in my eyes had the potential to be something like Icebreaker 2.0, but it just didn't land. And that's, again, not the author's fault, not anybody's fault. I just think I was expecting too much. So overall, I would give it 2 stars because of the last 30% of the book and how I was not feeling. But the plot, I do think that it definitely is at least 3 stars. Now, when it comes to spice, I honestly would give this probably 1 chili pepper. It really wasn't that many spicy scenes at all. Moving on, because this is a very touchy subject, I will read the 3rd book in this series though. I am gonna do it, and I'm gonna let you know if that one landed a little bit differently for me and if that one worked. Now we're moving on to Haunts by S.J. Tilley. Now, I need to tell you something. I read Dom last year, and that's one book that literally stayed in my mind as a really good read. And so when I heard this one was coming out, I was like, oh, I have to read that immediately, and I did. So it's about Hans, who becomes an assassin because of his dark past, moves in to a street that's sort of abandoned, and the only other person living on that street besides him is another woman across the street who he finds attractive and she finds him attractive. So obviously things happen, and they are both obsessed with each other. Maybe some would say to a little bit of an alarming degree, especially the way that Hans operates. but it was really fun to read about. Now, as soon as chapter 1 was over, I immediately knew that I was gonna love Hans, and spoiler alert, I in fact did. Now, he is the main male interest who is, drumroll please, blonde. And if you are in the bookish community, you know that that's polarizing as well. You either really love blonde main male interests or you really hate them. I'm not for them normally. However, Hans is the only blonde main male character who I will forever stan. And actually, his blonde hair fits his described aesthetic in the book, so that was very pleasing. Although Dom is still my superior SJ Tilly book boyfriend, I enjoyed Hans and this book just as much as I enjoyed Dom. He also does give the main female character a cute nickname, and she also happens to be curvy, which I personally love some representation, so I'm always here for that. Now, one thing I wasn't expecting is that the found family trope would be in this book, but I was pleasantly surprised that it was. Overall, I need to stop talking about this book because I genuinely love it so much, so if I let myself speak on it, I will lose it in about 2 seconds flat. So let's just go to the ratings. I would definitely rate this a 4-star read as well. And when it comes to spicy scenes, definitely 3 chili peppers. Okay, now we are moving on to Ice Planet Barbarians, a book that I've been meaning to read for way too long, but just sort of never got around to it, but I am so glad that I did. Okay, so Ice Planet Barbarians and Barbarian Alien were so much more than I was expecting they were gonna be. Mind you, I was influenced by certain people that this was just gonna be mostly smut and no plot. That's just what some people told me, and so I went into these books expecting and being happy with that. However, I wouldn't say that that's the case at all. I actually think the plot is very interesting, and I'm kind of hooked now and living for the plot more than the smut. Well, more than the smut, I don't know, but equally as. So it's about a group of healthy, unmarried, non-pregnant girls who get kidnapped from all over the United States by a group of aliens. Now their spaceship malfunctions and the aliens desert their so-called cargo, the women. By the way, calling women cargo is insane. I hated saying that, but anyways, they do decide to come back for them at a later time when it's safe. However, obviously, the women don't sit there and just wait. One woman is brave enough to go out into the world and explore, see if maybe they're back on Earth, and it turns out they're not. And she meets a different species of aliens, and she meets one alien first in particular who, as soon as he sees her, he mates with her automatically. And so that's sort of where our story really takes off. So this book really got me out of a reading slump that I didn't even sort of realize that I was in. The amount of fun that I was having reading this book, like kicking my feet, giggling, just waiting in anticipation, the amount of fun I was having, you would think that I was doing God knows what and not only in simply reading. But that just goes to show that reading can transport you into a really fun, magical place. And this was honestly just such a fun book. The plot, like I said, is really entertaining, a different POV, and I really was hooked because there were many fun twists and turns. By the end of the book, I was flipping the pages sort of like this really quickly because I just wanted to know what happens, but also I didn't want to finish the book at all. Also, I love the fact that I was reading it on a Kindle, so you know that this is not how I was flipping the pages. It looked more something like this, but I mean, I had to be dramatic there. Now, when it comes to the smut, it's not debaucherous or super vulgar, but it was a good amount of smut to where it does paint a really good, delicious picture in your head, if you know what I mean. And there is a good amount of spice, but also there is a good amount of tension between the two main characters. And I did love the main male character as well. This was also a very quick, fun read for me that I definitely would read again. And I did rate it 5 stars and 3 chili peppers. I did also read some of the other books in this series, but since I'm not done on the series, I don't want to comment on that just yet, but also know that book 2 was just as good as book 1. I'm talking 5 stars and 3 chili peppers as well. But I think I'm gonna speak more on that in detail in another video. So I think we're done for today. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you read any of these books, I would love to know what your opinion is, even if it differs from mine, as long as we're all respectful towards each other in the comments below. But anyway, if you did enjoy this, then please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!